What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to work with gears in Onshape. Now this might seem pretty complicated if you've never worked with gears before, but Onshape makes it really intuitive and pretty simple to understand. So the first thing you want to do is open up a blank part studio, and this is where we'll basically be learning everything. So how you actually add the gears into a document is you come up to the top here and you'll see add custom feature. Now you want to click on that, and you want to come over to here to feature script samples, and up here you want to search spur gear. Now it should just pop up right here, spur gear custom features. So we're going to click on that and click on it again right here. Now it says spur gear was added to your toolbar. So now if we click X, and you can see that spur gear is in our toolbar. So now let's insert the spur gear. And I'm just going to go over some of the different features and things this can do and try to explain them to you so you understand. So as you can see, it inserted our spur gear like this. So the very first thing you'll notice, it says sketch vertex or mate connector. So this will basically allow you to move these gears to wherever you want. So let's create a sketch on this top plane, and let's just draw a circle right here. So now let's move the sketch so it happens before the spur gear, and let's click on the spur gear. Now if we go to sketch, mate, or vertex, we can choose the mate connector and we can choose our circle. So now the gear gets brought over to the circle. So this is helpful for you moving them and trying to keep them in accurate positions. So now say I want to move this gear a little bit, I can simply drag this circle, over here, and now the gear is moved. So it makes it really easy to like move them around in a document. So I'm just going to go and hide these, and now let's get into the different features about one of these gears. So the first thing we got is depth. Changing the depth basically will just change how thick it is. So if you want a thicker gear or thinner gear, you can just change the depth. You can also do opposite direction or not. I like to leave this at around 0.25 inches or maybe like 5 millimeters. But yeah, and you could also choose the symmetric tool, which basically makes it so it's going 0.15 up, 0.15 down. So it's just, I don't really ever use that. I kind of just keep it symmetric checked off. Now we have the number of teeth. So basically this is pretty obvious. Number of teeth, how many teeth are on the outside. 10 is obviously going to be less than if it were 100. So yeah. Okay, so the module, diametral pitch, and circular pitch are just basically different ways to calculate how big the gear is going to be in relation to the module. So first let's start with module. So basically what module means is the pitch diameter divided by the number of teeth. So as you can see right here, this little dotted line, that's the pitch diameter. So that's kind of like a reference that all gears use. So if you want two gears to mesh correctly, the pitch diameters need to line up. So that's kind of what they're used for. So then you got the module, and the module is basically just going to be the pitch diameter divided by the number of teeth. So as you can see, the pitch diameter is 4 inches and we have 100 teeth, so that's going to be 0.04. Or if we make this 10 inches and we want to make this say 1 inch, then every one of these is going to be 0.1. So that's going to be the module. So the module has to be the same between two gears and are connecting, because that's what's going to allow them to like mesh really nicely and what's going to keep everything going smoothly. So that's what you want to make sure lines up. Okay, the next thing is going to be, you got a pressure angle. So you can change this to be, I think the range is, yep. So basically the pressure angle, all this really does is just, it adjusts how much tolerance there is in the gears. So the higher the pressure angle, the more smoothly the gears will go together, but then there'll also be more space in between the gears. So if you want something tight, you want a low pressure angle, but if you want something higher, then you could, if you want something tighter, then you could lower the pressure angle. I don't know if that made sense. Anyways, then you got root fillet. That basically just changes if you want square bases or if you want them to be a little bit curved in the base. I'm honestly not too sure what changing it does, but okay, so moving on to the diameter pitch. So this is basically just going to see how many teeth can fit into 1 inch of the gear's diameter. So this one is mainly used in the US for when they want to use the imperial system. It's kind of confusing. I don't really use it. And then same with the circular pitch. It's more from the distance from one tooth to the next tooth along the gear. I kind of just stick to the module one. So yeah, this is the main one I use. It kind of allows me to adjust anything and everything I need. So we got some extra settings down here. So for example, profile offset. So this is going to be basically the amount of tolerance in between gears. So the higher this number, the more space there'll be in between gears, and the lower this number, the more tight the gears will go together. So this is good if you need some clearance or something else in your model. Then you got this confusing dendrodrum. I'm not really too sure what it means, but basically it just makes the root a little bit bigger and smaller. Then you got root radius. Now this is good for if you want some gears that poke out farther or if you need them to be closer together. So you can easily change this to be 0.2 or 0.1. And that just basically changes like the inside. So say if you need these to stick out so they're longer. So the tip radius is basically just going to change how curved these top parts are. So I'm going to leave it at 0. Then you got the clocking angle, which basically all it does is just change the gear's position relative to the document. So if you want to rotate it slightly to make sure something lines up. Next, you got a helical gear, which if you check, it basically will set it on an offset. So this is good for applications like if you want 2 gears so they don't fall apart, or it could be good for turning vertical into horizontal motion, but you have to add some things for that to work. Well, yeah, I would say this is kind of more complex using helical gears, and I haven't really dove too far into it yet, but it can be good for some things. Like, yeah. Then you can change the clockwise versus counterclockwise, and you can also make it a double helix, which basically what that does is it creates like this cool pattern, which is good for meshing and stuff like that. Then you got a chamfer, which is basically all it does is just add a little thing to these ends, a little chamfer to the ends to make it so that it is pointed at the ends, or less pointed, or more pointed, depending on how you want it. Okay, so next, the final thing is going to be the center bore, which basically will just add a little hole in the middle so you can like stick them onto little pegs so then they can turn around on the peg or something like that. You can change the number based on how big you want the hole. And then you can also add a keyway, which will basically allow for you to move it at the same time as another object. So the gear could work with another object. And it's pretty helpful. You can change all the settings on that too. So that's basically all the basic settings in this. They can all be pretty useful. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how you would actually create gears that would mesh together. So I'm going to create a new part studio. And to start, I'm going to hide the right and the front. And this is just something you could honestly make on your own for your first time working with gears. I'm going to sketch on this top plane, and I'm going to do a center point triangle, or using the R command on my keyboard, and just draw it out. Let's make it like 2 inches by 3 inches. And we'll click check. Now what we can do is add a line going through the middle, and add a circle here and a circle here. And I actually like to change the workspace units to millimeters, because the gears, the spur gear tool in Onshape is in millimeters, so it just makes everything a little bit easier to understand. So I'm going to redimension this to be 50 by 75. Okay, beautiful. Now I have these two little circles here. I'm going to dimension this one to be, let's say 5, and same with this one, 5. Oops, 50, whoops, 5. Okay, looks good. Now what we want to do is we can just go ahead and click check. Now we want to insert our spur gears. So spur gear number 1, we want to connect it to this circle here. And we're going to click check. And then insert another spur gear and connect it to this circle. And we can click check. So now we have our 2 gears, but they're obviously kind of doing nothing right now. They're just kind of floating in space. So what we want to do is we want to change some of these settings to make them work together better. So I like to keep the depth around 5 millimeters, so that we don't have to change. Number of teeth, let's make this one have 30 teeth. And then let's keep the pitch diameter of this one to be 30 millimeters. Now I'm going to change the profile offsets. I'm going to add a 0.2 millimeter profile offset. So again, that helps with tolerances to make sure everything goes smoothly together. And then I think I'm going to also add a center bore of 5 millimeters. Actually, I'm going to make it 5.1 for 5.25. Let's make it 5.25 so there's some extra clearance in there. 5.25. Okay, perfect. Now let's edit the second gear. So we're going to make this one smaller because as you know, when you have a big gear compared to a small gear, when you turn the big gear, the small gear will start spinning really fast. So let's make this one have, let's say 10 teeth. And then we're going to keep the pitch diameter at 10. Let's add a center bore of 5 millimeters. And this looks good. But now these obviously are not spaced out correctly. We want this to line up with this. With this. So to do that, we go into our original sketch, and what we do is we dimension this from this. And what we want to do is we want to add up both of the pitch diameters and then divide it by 2. So let's go in here. The pitch diameter for our first gear is going to be 30. And then the pitch diameter for our second gear is going to be 10. So 10 plus 30 is 40, divided by 2, 20. So let's make this number 20. And if we did it right, it should line the gears up. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, they line up perfectly. These two lines that's exactly what we want to see. So you can rotate this second gear if you want it to like line up in your thing, but you don't have to. So we could just do a profile offset and where is it? Offset here. And then you can change clocking angle, let's say 17.5. And now you can kind of get the idea of how it would look. 18, okay. So as you can see, this would look pretty good. But the thing is, they're right now just kind of floating in space. So what we want to do is we want to create a base for them to actually spin on. So let's go and create the base. So I am going to come into our first, actually no, I'll just make a new sketch. Let's make a new sketch on this bottom plane. And let's kind of try to just go like something like that. Now what we can do is use our project tool. Project 1, project 2. Now I'm going to use my offset tool and offset it. So this is going to make it so they can spin smoothly. So let's make this 0.2. And then let's make this one as well 0.2. And let us extrude this way, and let's like extrude it. Make sure you select these things too. Extrude it. Make sure those are all selected. Let's extrude it 2 millimeters. Click check. Now we want to go to the top down view. Another extrude. Make sure your sketch is showing because sometimes they get hidden. So make sure to select the inner of the 2 circles. Inner 1, inner 2. Extrude it. So we know that these gears are 5 millimeters thick, but we want to add some room for clearance. So let's make this 5.5 millimeters. Okay, perfect. I actually want to make it a little bit bigger so then it could pop into the top. So let's actually make it 7.5 millimeters. Actually, 8 millimeters, sorry. 8 millimeters. Now what we can do, we can hide this sketch and we can just look at it, which it looks pretty good. So now what I want to do is create a little top for this part to have these parts stick together. So I am going to use a sketch on this face right here, and I'm going to create another center rectangle. So this one can be kind of as big as you want. Let's say I want to make it maybe just this big, just to pop it on top. And now I'm going to project this line and this line. I'm using the inside one so it'll pop into place more nicely. Just kind of give it a better snap fit. And we're going to extrude this to be down, and we're going to extrude it to be 2 millimeters. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to make sure that it is on new, because I don't want this to add to it, because if I add it, then it'll print in one part and I won't be able to get the gears in place. So I'm going to choose new, and yeah, that looks good. Now I just want to kind of add a little top cover. So we'll add that top cover now by doing a new sketch, extruding. Now, and let's make it so it's extruding to 1 millimeter. Okay. Now, you don't have to follow these steps. I'm just kind of giving you a quick example on how you can make something with gears on your own. And I'm just going to give it a quick fillet around the edges to try to give it a nice finish. Okay, looks good. Check. I'm actually going to edit this sketch. Maybe make it so it is not coming so far wide. Yeah, maybe here. Check. Make sure this extrude worked. We're going to deselect this one. Deselect. Check. Oh my days. 4 little birds. Okay. Line up. Down. So right now I'm just kind of adjusting it because I didn't really like how big that one part was. How far it stuck out. Okay, I like that better. That looks better. Now I can also add a fillet to this bottom piece. You can honestly change anything. I'm just trying to give you guys a quick example on something you could make using this gear application. And click check. And now you have yourself a simple gear ratio, which should have pretty pop in place, and everything should work pretty good because of the tolerance we added. Okay, so yeah, this is just a quick example. So now I'm going to show you some other applications for this. So I made this this gear fidget toy, and I just basically followed the same simple principles. Let me just show it. It was for some reason hidden. Yeah, I basically just followed the same simple principles. So this gear right here turns, and then it turns this smaller gear. But then you can also make that a chain reaction. So this big gear is turning the smaller gear, which means this smaller gear is going to turn fast. But then it's connected to a big gear, which is connected to a smaller gear. So this means the smaller gear is going to spin really fast. And yeah, you can just kind of apply it over and over again to play with the different gear ratios and try to understand it. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just trying to kind of help you guys out a little bit because I couldn't really find that many good tutorials on this. And then you can see I made these little pop joints to pop everything in place. And yeah, this is pretty cool. I also made this measurement tracker, and it is pretty cool. So if I turn on section view, you can see that I made it so these gears have only one knob on them, because I only want it to turn it every time it spins around a full rotation. So you could do stuff like that too. Yeah, there's just many different ways you could play around with it. Or I also made this simple rack and pinion fidget toy, which if you want your gears to be able to stay in place without having to assemble everything, so that's basically called print in place, you can add these little, let me show you. You can add this little kind of curve in the middle of the gear to make it so it stays in the same place. So you can do that with a revolve tool, and I'll quickly show you the sketch I used for that. So as you can see, I used this sketch right here, and I just kind of sketched this out. If you want, you can pause the video, but this is what I use. I use this sketch, and it just kind of sketches out in the middle of the gear, and that's how I create the print in place aspect. But you can do this on your own. This was a little bit of a longer tutorial because As I said, I'm not an expert at some of these other tutorials, but I was trying to just give you guys something that you could hopefully help you guys make some cool stuff, some cool fidgets or something like that. But if you watched to the end, I appreciate you, and I hope you enjoyed this video.